Hi, my name is Kenzie Dolan. I'm here with Madeline of MadHealing, and we're going to be talking a little bit about our both of our experiences in the corporate world. This is Rise from the Ashes, the panel. This is the third panel that I have done for my digital online course about leaving toxic work environments. And I have a woman here that's with me who also has worked in the corporate world, but now has shifted into a spiritual aligned career path. And she has a very interesting, cool story. So I'm very happy that she's here. Before I pass it over to Madeline, really quickly about myself, my name's Kenzie Dolan. I'm the owner of Ruby Jade Rituals. I'm a certified professional astrologer. And when I'm not talking about astrology, I am talking about toxicity, whether it's in the workplace or in relationships. I have a lot of plutonic energy. Today is Hecate's goddess day, and I don't like injustice of any kind. So even when it comes to the corporate world. And so I'm here with Madeline. Madeline is also an astrologer. She does a lot of different other things, and I'm going to let her introduce herself and what she's doing. So, Madeline, I'm going to pass it off to you.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm Madeline. I just want to say that Kenzie didn't mention is I learned a lot of astrology from her. So she is one of my grandmaster teachers, and I'm so grateful that I got to do work with her. I learned a lot about myself and a lot about astrology in our work together. So she's a really special teacher and human, and I'm sure you know this if you're watching this. But my name's Madeline. I am the founder of MadHealing, a company which initially started, the initial thesis was to help women gather in community to remember who they are through each other. And since then, it has evolved, as I have evolved, to incorporate all things mind, body, spirit. So I am a professional yoga and meditation teacher. That includes sound healing. I give card readings, oracle, and tarot. I just gave one to Kenzie today. Thank you, Kenzie. I love reading astrology. Thank you, Kenzie. And lastly, and most importantly, I'm on my journey now. Interesting discussion because we're talking about the corporate world.
Yeah.
I have, since leaving initially one iteration of the corporate world, which I'll talk about, I am now tiptoeing back into the corporate world, but wearing a much different hat. So I am in the process of becoming a licensed family and couples therapist. And right now I'm acquiring licensure hours working at a rehab center for addicts in recovery. And it's truly one of the most rewarding pieces of work I've ever done. So it's a way to blend my skills in group facilitation, mind, body, spirit, regulation, and overall healing spaces for a totally new population. So that's a little bit more about me.
Love that. All right. So, what do you think, Madeline, what do you think sparked the beginning of your mad healing journey? Was it in the corporate world? And if it was, go ahead and share what your stories were like when you were in the corporate world.
Yeah. So I think it was I don't know if like the idea for Mad Healing started in the corporate world, but definitely the seeds of it were planted. All I knew was that I just didn't fit. And I tried really hard to fit. I tried so hard. I had three, I would say two professionally like fancy, illustrious jobs working at big banks, doing exciting, they were exciting things. Um, Sales, trading, credit, and doing equity sales. And it was all very fun. It was on a trading floor. Like it was very fun and intoxicating for a time. Until I, long story short, had severe burnout in all the areas, mind, body, spirit, totally everything, whole other discussion on that. But my body gave out, I wasn't listening. You can only imagine. So I guess in that burnout, I was essentially like, how do I live a life? If I'm, how old was I? 26, 27, and crumbling. How am I gonna live my life? Like, how is this gonna be sustainable?
Mm.
And the answer was it can't. It's not. Like I just wanted to feel better in my body. So I think it started that way.
Yeah.
I think it started that way. How can I literally just feel better? And there's so many things to say and so many places to go, but I guess I'll just say this. The structure of the life that I was living, in addition to it not being sustainable, it wasn't sustainable because it wasn't healthy. I would I would wake up when it was still dark in the sky and run to the trading floor, and I was always late. We had to be on the desk at like 6:20.
Wow.
There in this Aquarian age with technology, not to go on a total tangent, but that used to make sense. There was a time when being the first fax over to your client would actually move the market.
Okay.
Now, fast forwarding to the Aquarian age and the age of technology, I, Madeline, don't need to be in the office to send a fax over to my clients to tell them what our analyst said about Nike. No, because
Mm.
I can open my phone and everything's right there. So I think the most obvious glaring thing was the lack of sustainable structure. It wasn't pragmatic. So it became when you have all these people living really unhealthy lives to show that they care, but it doesn't actually make sense with the way the world is today. That starting off, just starting there, people's bodies aren't happy. So they're
Hmm.
coming in at ungodly hours and then I was spending all night out entertaining, which is fun when you're in your 20s at first. And then
Yeah.
and I didn't understand. It didn't make sense to me why I needed to be there so early. And of course, there's politics and there's FaceTime, and that's what I was understanding. So you're not really, if it doesn't make logical sense, then you're there because you're young and you're saluting and you're showing respect to your peers. So I don't want to just on that
Hmm.
40 years ago mattered. Me calling Kenzie and saying, "Hey Kenzie, our analyst said buy Nike and we don't have Twitter or cell phones. We're on a
Yeah.
landline."
Yeah.
That actually mattered. Now you wake up, you have Twitter and you have the president tweeting and it moves the stock. So why does just
Yeah.
even simple systemic thing, you don't have to be a genius to understand how the
Hmm.
systems are, one part of the system is outdated and how that would trickle down to everyone.
Right. That's really interesting. I don't know much about trading because like Madeline, I worked in the corporate world. I worked two different jobs, one at a big four accounting firm and one at a big entertainment company. Um, and I had to be at the client at KPMG, and I was also late and I would get in trouble, but I
Right.
was working from 9 a.m. to 3 a.m.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if I was there at 9:03, I was getting side eye from my managers and getting a little bit of like a talk in the morning about not being there on. Yet I had left the office at 3 in the morning. So just 6 hours, like, before. So that's hilarious. It is, I think it's a really good point. It's like, why do that to people when you don't need to do that to people? Because a lot of this work at this point is you can do it from home. Um, so did you ever experience like toxicity in the workplace while you were there?
Yes. So much toxicity that I think I had the trauma. My initial trauma response was was fawn. I like made myself small. Then I would get angry and aggravated because I wasn't really alone and everyone was with me. And I guess, had the guts to be like, wait, no. So then I went into fight. And then in the years past, I've like dissociated completely. So my memory is like hazy, but I just remember like getting my boss demoted. I led like a coup on It's
Oh,
terrible. Oh my God. Toxicity, left, right, and center. Um, or let back on that theme, because it's similar to you. So if I had to be at the desk at 6:20, even though our first meeting was at 7 and I like came in at 7, side eye, same thing.
yeah.
And I was just like, this is BS. So that was the first thing. The second thing was I started to figure out why my job existed, which it's in decline, that role. And there's a
Okay.
reason. And it was a relationship job, which I'm great at. So I was really good at establishing relationships with important people who are high ticket, high paying clients who would pay our desk a lot of money. So that was that was the goal of the job. And I did that really, really well. So almost too well. And I learned this the hard way in that book, The Art of War. Like, don't outshine your boss, like, don't outshine your master. I did. And I
Mm,
was this 23-year-old, you know, outshining my 40-year-old boss, making tons more than me,
yeah.
many multiples more than me. And it was ruffling his feathers, but wasn't, I didn't realize that. And on top of that, what was even more ruffling his feathers was I wasn't playing by those like corporate rules. I was like, let
Mm,
me just do what needs to be done outside and let me take care of the job, which is nurture the relationship, which I'm very good at. And that skill transfers to everything I do today. Like that genuine, I was good at it because I was genuine. I wasn't faking it. And I would
mm-hmm.
put the person before any content, any like selling. I really like, I did the reverse sale where I just didn't even talk about the product and cared about who I had in front of me. And that
Yeah.
went a really long way. The issue is that internally in the bank, it ruffled my boss's feathers. And so he would get me because he couldn't get me from producing, from doing what I was supposed to be doing, but he could
Yeah.
get me by being like, you're late. Sit down. Oh, you sent the calendar for the wrong date. You know,
Yeah. Like nitpicky.
very nitpicky. He would scold me for not even overtly, he couldn't scold me because I'd be like, oh, I'm having drinks with the head of trading at, or a big client. And I would walk off the desk at 4 p.m., like early. And I'm like, I'm getting drinks with like this really important guy. Bye. And piss him off. So what he would do is, and then we have all these like admin requests as juniors, like, did you like admin requests that come in? But we also had an administrative assistant there who doesn't meet with clients, whose job it is to take care of that. Anyway, so like those admin requests would come in after I left. And then he would take me off the email, take care of it, and then forward it
Mm.
to his boss and being like, see, she's not doing her job.
Oh my God.
And so I remember breaking down to her in tears and just being like, "Are you kidding me? Like I was out with this really important person that we both know." And it became toxic because I had to get my clients. Then I was like, "Can you just write to my boss's boss about how amazing I am?" And so they would write to the boss, "This is the best saleswoman I've ever seen."
Yeah.
So little things like that. And it was this constant like war where because he was nitpicking me with the small stuff. He was like, you're very good at the top of the house, but the bottom of the house,
Mhm.
the admin, I wasn't good at, which I'm not pretending to be good at. But we have someone whose sole job it is to do
Yeah.
just stuff like that. Like just like constantly, he was like, sit down in your seat, sit down in your seat. He couldn't stand to be outshines. And really I think because I exposed him in that way, a 26-year-old who's making way, I was still making a lot. I was still making a lot for any 26-year-old, but compared to whatever he was making, which is probably close to $1 million,
Mm.
he was probably making like 10 times as much as me, honestly. So I think what I did was expose that I could do his job for way less, and that scared him. Just
Totally. Totally. Yeah, I think that I remember at KPMG, I definitely was a personality hire. I mean, like when I graduated from my accounting school, I was given most unlikely accountant at the banquet. Since there was like a superlative. I didn't go to the banquet because I was studying for the CPA and I got that superlative. And it really, like, honestly, they were right because I did do, the auditing job for 2 years. And they definitely hired me as a personality hire. And I did understand the job, like, eventually, but it took a little bit of time.
Of course.
It took a little bit of time. It took about 6 months to really understand what it was, what it entailed being an audit associate. I was an auditor, and I remember I had a performance management leader, and he was like, "I really like you, Kenzie, but like to work this job, you have to be a soldier, and you're not a soldier."
Oh,
And I was like, "Yeah, I mean, like I don't want to conform." Like, and basically, you have to conform, and you have to follow certain rules, and there's a lot of what's the word?
bureaucracy.
Bureaucracy.
Yeah.
Yeah. And just like all these things that you have to do to, get a pat on the back, and I just was not there for any of it. So I got like kind of in a position where I had a lot of people that, didn't want me on their engagement teams because like it was the same type of thing where I would be exposing their mistakes, or like asking why was prior year wrong, but we were following it. And like there was many times where I just was in a position at KPMG with people that acted as if they were so busy, and they, were doing so much. And in reality, they were never on the job site. They were having me, like a associate trained the intern, and it was me and the intern basically doing the audit by ourselves on the job site, no manager to be found. And it's just an example of that job was highly understaffed, and it's because they burn people out.
And the focus is also on the wrong thing. It's on getting in at 9, not 9:03. It's on, for me, in my case that I didn't even mention, for every 1 minute that I spent with a client, I had to spend like 5 minutes internally explaining to everyone what I did with that client and what we talked about. And make like,
Yeah.
it was just, it's like an inefficiency thing because as you touched on, like the priorities are wrong. The priority should be on the job, auditing. Whatever the job, relationships, what is the job? The priority should be
Yeah.
focused on that job.
Yeah.
But instead, because of these structures, unfortunately, my opinion is too many people have jobs and they're getting paid too much. So, in order to keep the job, they're deeming internal politics,
Yeah.
internal meetings, FaceTime, networking, which are all useful tools. I'm not saying it's not, but they'll weigh that equally, if not more, than the actual thing itself.
I know.
So I think that's what it sounds like for you and for me. Like I'm like, why does it matter if I come in at 9:30 versus 9? I'm doing the freaking job. For me, why does it matter when I come in? I'm making relationships with the most or high our most
Hmm.
important clients. These when realizing that these structures are less about the actual job and more about the performance of value instead of actually creating value. Ooh,
Hmm.
sorry. Instead of actually creating value, like that's I think where the disconnect is. Because all of a sudden when you're like, okay, it's just the best of the best, there's no hierarchy, you don't need to come in at this time. All of
Hmm.
a sudden the people up here are exposed because it's the people down here who are actually the muscle and the meat of the operation.
Yeah.
Kind of
Yeah.
not like being exploited, but they're the ones carrying it. And the ones up here keep getting paid more and they're getting scared, so they're networking more. So that's what I noticed. It was very top heavy
Yeah.
at structures, like lots of people at the top, but then skinny at the bottom where the actual work was getting done. So it didn't make sense.
Do you think that that's why toxicity happens in the workforce?
I think that's one of the reasons. So I'm actually I didn't say this at the beginning. I said I'm a family and couples therapist, becoming one. But my training is through systems. It's called a systemic. Another way to say it is like a systemic therapist. So just to quickly highlight the difference between what I would do and a mental health counselor would be like, okay, Madeline, I see this symptom, this symptom, this symptom. You clearly have ADHD, you might have hypomania, you definitely have PTSD, diagnose you immediately.
Yeah.
Versus my form of therapy that I'm studying is systemic. It's looking at the whole family system. It's saying, oh, looks like your grandpa had this, your grandma had this, and you inherited this. And, not necessarily jumping to like diagnosing. It's more like let's not focus just on Madeline or Kenzie, and let's look at the wider system of why
Hmm.
these things exist. And so applying that systemic lens, which is it's also very Aquarian, it's like systems and community, and it's not just the individual. It's like looking at the
Hmm.
whole thing and the community and how we inform each other. So with that lens, looking at corporations, the only ones that I can speak of are the two that I worked at, which were two famous banks. I won't say the name, but whatever. Um, I looked at the actual meat and bones of this system, and a lot of it didn't make logical sense. doing the job maybe makes sense, but like the way in which there's form and there's content, the content made sense, but then the form in which how it was constructed and these like arbitrary rules and these, we call them covert rules in therapy, these like unspoken alliances and coalitions, it just
Hmm.
really, I think it stems from scarcity. I think it stems from survival. I think it stems from like competition as opposed
Yeah.
to collaboration. Even though everyone will say, like, we collaborate, that's one of our pillars.
Yeah.
Uh, Everyone's kind of sharp elbowing, and that doesn't
Totally.
make for a healthy system.
So when you were in the workforce as somebody that wrote a thesis on women and being in your divine feminine, did you feel like women were leaning more into their masculinity than in their feminine energy?
There's no room for like a feminine woman in where I worked. The closest one got, which I got, was I looked super feminine and I worked the woman thing and I used it as a tool
Yeah.
for my power and like why I was different because most of the people are like 40-year-old white men and I was this like hot 24-year-old and I milked it, okay? So like I like in a sense like that was a tool and that was great because it's literally diverse. I'm different. So they're going to want to hang out with me as opposed to everyone else who looks the same.
Hmm.
So that was one aspect. Oh, that was the closest to feminine it got. It was the looks. But in terms of the actual energy, not 0%. There's not room for that at all. It's not in the ethos of,
Hmm.
especially it's like banks, like make it happen. Go. It's the
Yeah.
epitome of masculinity, which masculinity is not bad. There's very divine qualities. What I'm pointing to is just that there's a complete imbalance when there's so much of one and such an absence of the other.
Hmm.
That's when it becomes sick. And so what I saw, unfortunately, how I said like the meat and bones were like down here at my first bank, the meat and bones were actually the women, and they were women 22 years old to 45,
Okay.
20 to 40, okay, who are actually doing all this work. And then a tier above and a tier above and a tier above, they're all men. So all the men
Yeah.
are managing, but all the women are like overworking and over functioning, which is very like masculine. And the women that I had been primed to look up to within these structures, like, oh, you should look at this person. She's the head of blah blah blah, and you should meet with her, and she's the head of women in an investment bank. And I was primed to look up to these women who again looked feminine, but their entire ethos was strictly masculine to the point where even people who I looked up to, like they would have a baby and they'd come back and so fast. I don't know, like I don't want to say the amount of time, but I'm like, you just had your third child. Like, don't you want to, like, it's
Yeah.
almost, I felt like a part of themselves needed to be killed. I felt like I was killing a part of myself, like I was
Mm.
like amputating something. And you kind of have to survive and even thrive. And then thank
Hmm.
God that my body burned out because I don't think I would have if I didn't physically need to heal, just physical. If I didn't physically need to heal, I would have never gotten off that hamster wheel and kept
Yeah.
deluding myself that I was like in the right thing.
Yeah, totally. I worked in the music industry at Madison Square Garden, and that is a male-dominated field. And the way that I experienced the question that I asked Madeline was the way women would talk to each other was so fierce. And it was the same thing where you kind of look to women as a way to find commonality or a little bit of a relief. And they were some of the toughest people to work with to the point where it was catty, it was backstabbing. Um, they were not helpful.
Mm-mm.
And it was almost like it was almost harder at times to get along with the women in the music industry, especially. Um, And I do believe it's a product of the patriarchy. I don't know if you feel that way. And I'm not really sure what it's like now because I've been out of the corporate world for a
Yeah.
while. I mean, the last time I worked in the corporate world was in 2020. So I don't know if it's gotten worse or if it's gotten better. Like, I have no idea. I don't know if the DEI program's being, you know, minimized. Is that going to help it? Is that because I just think that in general, this is like you were talking about the ethos. I think that this is just the way this system has been built.
Right. Yeah, and the DEI stuff, okay, I had an epiphany when in chewing on that concept and I applied it. I again took my therapeutic concepts and applied it to this. So in therapy, there's how do you create lasting change? How? So there's two ways. One, or there's really one way, but there's two ways to change. There's one way to really change. The first way is called first order change. And first order change is what DEI is. It's changing like it's adding or subtracting things into the system with the goal of changing it, but still the underlying structure of the system is the same. So it's like it's DEI is a perfect example. Like we're going to add this in the system with the hopes,
Yeah.
but the system is still the system. Second order change is when, and a good example of that in my life is hopping. I didn't like this bank, so let me just try a different bank.
Yeah.
I didn't really like. I'm changing, but the system is still the same. Second order change. How do you create lasting change? Okay, I was at a bank when I realized that banks weren't for me, and I was like, I'm going to Bali. That's second order change where the whole system changes. So with the whole DEI, like to create real lasting change, it's like the entire system from the ground up needs to be
Yeah.
changed. So that's
Yeah.
how I feel about DEI. I'm like, okay, cool initiative, but it's not gonna, I don't think it was like a systemic enough change to
Hmm.
actually implement what we want.
Yeah, well, it's
And
kind
I
of
was, yeah,
go
sorry.
ahead. Go ahead. No, I have one point and I'll
I
remember
think
it.
I was thinking about it too because I think it also attracts fine, it might attract different candidates on the surface.
Hmm.
But those candidates are coming in and unfortunately just like women have to morph themselves
Yeah.
to be like men, these diverse candidates from whatever backgrounds are coming in and having to morph themselves into the system. So I don't think it's like the system's not changing for them. They're changing in the system. They just might look different. So that's what I realized. I'm like, okay, this change I don't think is effective enough for what we really need. Sorry. Now go ahead.
Totally. And it's kind of like, like rainbow washing for LGBTQ month. It's like all the corporations started to use, the rainbow on their logo. And it was like, this is so performative.
Yeah. Oh, you have no idea. Especially at the places, women for investment banking, women,
Yeah.
the men who are like, it's just the men who are supporting the women. It's just, it felt like such a clown show. Like, I'm like, this is a literal performance so that
Right.
everyone can feel better about themselves and say, we support women. When if you actually look at the day to day and step on the trading floor, all the women are doing all the work and getting paid way less. And the people up here are walking around managing them.
Yeah, there was KPMG was the only Big Four accounting firm that had a woman that was like I don't know, she was like the CFO, like for KPMG. I can't remember her title, but it was a big title. She was running the whole firm. But when you looked at the partners in the New York office, which is the headquarters of New York or the United States, there was so little women partners.
Yeah.
So it really was like another example of where it was like, okay, like we can use this in recruiting efforts to get young women to work for us. And Big Four accounting firms look for attractive women to work for them.
Yeah.
That's a thing. And it's a thing everywhere, I feel like. Like it's it's weird. It's a weird thing. Like I think, you worked at a bank and you were talking about how you were hired and you were young and attractive and you were working around a lot of men. Like there's stuff like there's I talk to my friends that are in corporate jobs right now and they're like, yeah, like, I work around a lot of attractive women. And my bosses are older men that are middle-aged and
Yeah.
it's interesting like how that is all like laid out because I don't think it's a coincidence.
It's not. It's not. And I'm telling you, I don't think it's good for women because I think what, in my experience, saw these two archetypes of women. One is like what I was doing, which is really, which can be not healthy. I was playing up my femininity and it was kind of manipulative.
Hmm.
Um, Playing up my femininity, almost exploiting my own femininity, but like being really masculine. Or there's like the really like machismo, like completely shutting down your femininity and being one of the guys. And it's just like there's no healthy space for like healthy, safe women, like feminine expression in its truest form, because it just doesn't exist. There's no life there.
Hmm.
No crying, no crying, I can't imagine how many times I've heard like, don't cry, which is also just so toxic too. Like you're basically saying it's not okay to like feel, whole other topic.
Yeah,
But
yeah, yeah. Okay, so crying at work. Um, I definitely cried at my jobs multiple times. There were many moments where I couldn't take it anymore. Do you feel like there are appropriate and not appropriate ways to act in these toxic work environments? Because at the end of the day, like you said, like putting a control on like the way you feel, I think is toxic. So I would equate that to a toxic work environment. So
yeah.
um, do you feel like you can speak on anything about like religious beliefs, sexual orientation, mental health, like equal pay among genders? Like, do you feel like you saw certain people that couldn't actually fully be themselves at work because it just
Oh,
was deemed not appropriate?
I think everyone is like self-censoring, which, okay, I guess to some degree that's healthy. If I'm up here, even with you right now, making racist slurs, which I wouldn't, you would be like, okay, I'm not putting you on my, giving you a platform. So in some sense, like, there's like a healthy in life, I think a healthy amount of censoring and checking bias. But I just think like in that, I'll speak for me. In my case, I saw a lot of dysregulation of others and myself because essentially it's like, and this isn't, again, this is a systemic problem. Is it just the corporate world or is it our whole world? Like, is
Yeah.
this just a corporate problem or is this like a broader systemic issue? I was just having a conversation with my dad about it today. How when we're younger, we're not taught like how to breathe. We're taught how to read, but we're not really taught how to breathe in a way that soothes us. We're not taught how to process our feelings.
Hmm.
These things don't get taught. So, like, no one really knows how to process their feelings unless you go find it. And so, what I saw there in the case of myself and other people was a lot of swallowing, which,
Mm.
okay, to some degree, it's appropriate. You don't want to be inappropriate. If you're about to go off, I was angry so many times. I'm happy in a way that I didn't like let myself go all the time. And at the same time, there's something really unhealthy, especially training as a clinician, when you're swallowing your expression on a chronic, consistent basis. That is not healthy. And again, back to the female role models that I was primed to look up to who had like made it in this man's world, they all said to me like, don't cry, like no crying, don't cry. Like and that's what made me say it feels like there's like a killing of an essential part of humanity.
Yeah.
Like we're not allowed to cry. Like
Yeah.
I don't know, like there was so much shame even with me, like indoctrinated into me that like you can't cry at work. It's like
Hmm.
I cry every week. And I don't think anything's wrong with that. Like, I cry when I'm experiencing joy, I cry when I'm sad. And I've realized that since quitting, my capacity to feel, because I've actually allowed myself to feel, because I've actually trained my feeling muscle, has come back online. And for so long, I was like, don't cry, I'm fine. And that's where we see a lot of projection. And that's where we see a lot of anger and resentment and all these things festering up from the surface because we haven't spoken. We haven't allowed it to come through in a healthy way. So, like, on the one hand, yeah, it's good to like regulate your emotions for sure. But is it good to like self censor? No. Is it good to swallow your feelings?
Hmm.
No, that's not regulating your emotions. That's swallowing your expression. And there's a difference. So,
It's interesting how you talk about like amputating a part of yourself in the corporate world. So like, I'll tell a personal story because I don't care to hide this anymore. But when I went into my second job in the corporate world in New York City, I worked at Madison Square Garden. I have a distant relationship to the owner of MSG. I'm a Dolan. So there was a big elephant in the room when I started that job. And in fact, they held a meeting before I even got to that first day, and they said, Dolan will be working on this floor. Make sure you watch whatever you say and everything you do.
Hmm.
And I found out that that had happened after one of my coworkers had gotten let go. She was like, I want you to know that this happened. And she goes, I don't think it was right because they were talking about you and you hadn't even been able to come in and show who you were as a person. And
Right.
keep in mind, I was not getting paid a lot. I was a coordinator. I was getting a pay cut from the job that I came from and a title decline. And in addition, I wasn't just handed the job like everyone thought. I
Right.
interviewed 10 times.
Oh my God.
And they told me that they didn't have a position for me. And then they finally called me back and they were like, we do have an open spot because basically the whole team has quit. And the thing about it was when I worked at that job, I had some of the worst workplace bullying I've ever experienced in my whole career. And I got pulled into many offices where one of my directors pulled me in his office, shut the door, and he goes, well, you're an easy target. And it was all because my last name was Dolan. And the sad thing was, is people didn't know the relationship to my relative. This relative and I, we barely knew each other at the time. Our his father and my grandfather were first cousins, and that was the extent of it. We never really hung out. We didn't have each other's phone numbers.
Yeah.
And then what happened was is what we were talking about in the beginning of this chat. There were so many people that were high up, and there was too many roles, and there was a lot of people that weren't doing their job. And it and what happened was basically my director that pulled me into the same director that pulled me into the room and said, "You're an easy target." He wasn't coming to work. He wasn't doing his job, and he was had all these women underneath him that were working for him and doing all the work. And it was starting to show that he wasn't really pulling his weight. So what does he do? He picks the easy target to try to put it on. So he tried to get me fired, and this list of mistakes that I made, they were tracking all my mistakes. It went up to my relative, and my relative and I finally met because of my director. And so it was kind of interesting how my
Wow.
relative and I actually met for the first time. It wasn't because we knew each other and he got me the role. Yeah, of course he helped. I mean, my last name's Dolan. Of course, like I'm not gonna deny that. I guess you could say it's nepotism, but at the same time, I worked hard at that role every single day and I put in the work and I liked working at that job. I was very proud to work at that job. And it was interesting how it all happened. And it was, they all kind of knew that like not only did I have this relation to my relative, but I was going through a really difficult time at the time. My sister, was going to lose her first son, and
Hmm.
we were actively grieving. I was actively grieving, waiting for that to happen because we kind of knew early on that that was going to happen. And it was really tragic how some of these people treated me. And so the toxicity was insane there. Do you feel like what's your take on just maybe nepotism or maybe coming from a background, if you come from a background with money, are you treated differently in the workforce? Because I think that this is not talked about enough. I think that we do talk about other things like, okay, like if you don't have a lot of money, but I think that it's interesting this was an interesting experience. I feel like, yeah, I have privilege, but the amount of bullying I received because of my last name, it was crazy. I mean, I got shingles at this job. I cried every single day at this job because that's how mean these people were to me.
That's
So
terrible.
so I want to know if you have any experience with that. Did you ever feel
Wait,
like
first I want to know, okay, but first I want to know how was meeting your relative? Like, how did that discussion go?
I mean, he was just like, "Do you want the job?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he's like, "Well, how do you think you're doing?" And I'm like, "I think I'm doing okay." And he's like, "Your team apparently doesn't think so." He's like, "Take a look at this list." And I had to look at the list that they wrote about me. And I was like, he's like, "What do you think of it?" I was like, "Well, I mean, like some of it is true, but some of it is highly exaggerated." And we worked together, and he was very nice because he knew my sister was going through that. He knew that that was awful. And I think he suspected that some people were not doing their jobs. And so he was just really, he wanted to take me under his wing. And he was like, let's just, I want you to come into my office and let's meet. And like, is everything outside of your sister? Like, is everything okay at home? And like, it was an example of humanity. Like it actually was like I was really like sinking at this role because these people were so mean to me. Like
Ugh.
it was bad and I didn't know what to do because I was going home and dealing with so much stress. And then I was dealing with so much stress at work. I couldn't escape the stress. And it was like, it was apparent that I was really struggling. I was still coming to work. I was doing the best that I could. But yeah, and before I pass it off to you, I did run into a girl at MSG that had married a Dolan. And so her name changed while she was, at the role at MSG. And we were in the bathroom together. And she goes, I have to ask you a question because you're a Dolan. But like, since I've changed my name, like, people have been so rude to me. And she's like, how have you been dealing with this? And it was a real thing. And it's been a thing that I think not just me, I think that there is this like, this there's this like type of like animosity towards people that have a relation to whoever. And it was
Right.
sad. It was sad because I don't think that I deserved that at all. Like
Yeah.
it was an interesting experience and I think a lot of people I did meet a lot of great people. Like I wouldn't say that it was everybody, but there was just some people that really like just were out for me
Yeah.
from the get-go.
Yeah. Yeah. It sounds to me, as you're describing, it sounds like actually discrimination. So it's interesting, and it's not a Nepo thing. He didn't give you the job. So you're not
Hmm.
like a Nepo baby because he wasn't like, okay, this is my relative. She's getting the job. She's skipping like you did it. Like, yes, you're related to someone in a position of power,
Yeah.
but like you did the work, you did all the work necessary that anyone else would need to do in order to get this job. So I actually, the way you're describing it to me, it actually sounds to me like a form of discrimination. Like,
Yeah.
like just because of something that like you couldn't even control your last, like something about you
Yes.
are, it wasn't accepted.
Yeah.
Um, that makes me angry. I relate to that a lot. We don't have to go there, but you know that.
Yeah.
Like it sounds like targeted discrimination and that's not acceptable.
Yeah, it felt like it. And it was interesting because there was another time where that same director that was so hard on me, he had, a direct report, and they had these meetings with me. How inappropriate was this? Two middle-aged men meeting with a young woman in her 20s every single week to talk about every single mistake that she made that week.
You know what? To me, that just, it's like, this reminds me of when my boss like eliminated me from the email and forwarded how I accidentally sent the wrong calendar invite from the wrong week.
Yeah.
And see, she's, her attention to detail
Yeah,
is,
yeah,
it's
yeah,
like, to me, okay, at first it's like how pathetic, like, and like F you. But like on the, like on a broader scale, zooming it out. Because I'm actually going through something. Ooh, I had a tough professor this semester who wasn't hard. She was like discriminatory. It was similar. I
Hmm.
noticed this pattern of like, of nitpicky and
Hmm.
and at first you feel angry, and then I back it up, and after processing and whoa Nelly and backing it up, I zoom out and I'm like, how miserable does this person have to be that they're in this, they're in actually the position of power. It's not me. They're in the position of power, and
Hmm.
they're spending their powerful time when they could be doing
I
meaningful
know.
things,
I know.
zooming in on the tiniest minute things, and then going a step further to make a young woman feel bad. Like that actually says more about them than it does about you or your ability or lack of ability. It's
Hmm.
like, to me, it actually, that's like quite sad. Again, back to systems. Why are people, we shouldn't have people who are so, I hate to say it, like miserable with their lives, that
Hmm.
this is their powerful work that they're doing. They're combing through a young girl's mistakes. It's just like, it's not, it's
Yeah.
discriminatory, and
And
it's
it
almost
was, and going to back to just being a woman, th those meetings finally ended because my relative did find out about them, and he was like, "Well, that is kind of a misuse of time, really, because like we have shit to do. Like, we're running a big entertainment company. Like, we have shows coming in and out of these four venues. We have venues in different states. We have sports teams. Like, we don't really have time to go over a coordinator's mistakes. It's like either she's going to have the job or she's not. And when the meetings ended, my director's direct report was like, I'm going to get you a book. He's like, it's a really, really good book. I'm going to get this book for you, and I really want you to read it, and I'll read it too. And I was like, okay. And he goes, it's called Quiet. And I felt like it was a weird, like, kind of like a message, like, better don't speak up type of thing. And it was strange. Like, it was strange. Basically, what happened at the end was that my director did get fired. It wasn't just because of me, it was because it was clear that, there was other people that he was targeting, and he
right,
was lying and he wasn't doing his job. And he kind of shot himself in the foot with how he doubled down and really targeted me. And I did have the relation that I did. And
right.
so it was unfortunate, but I learned a lot through that. I think sometimes there is this idea of people that, have a relative that's well off or they come from money. It's just so easy. They have a silver spoon in their mouth. Do you want to talk about any of
Yeah,
that? Because I would like
yeah.
to hear what you would have to say.
So I have two lines of thought. The first thought is, actually, they both come from Kabbalah. This first thought, I love Kabbalah. For those who don't know, it's a form of Jewish mysticism that's open to everyone. The first one I learned from this rabbi who's amazing. He actually has a bunch of mental health centers here. He's a Scorpio, Kenzie, and because he had an addiction problem, and he healed his addiction, and he became a rabbi, and he opened up all these addiction centers. So he's really powerful. Anyway, and he has a podcast, Gedalia Fenster, and he talks about money as if it's a neutral energy. He says it makes money as an amplifier, and that it makes you more of who you are. So if you're an inherently generous person, having more money gives you the opportunity to be more generous, right? But if you're a shopaholic, or you love drugs, actually, I had a client recently who had so much, he said this was part of the problem. He always had money.
Mm,
So if you're addicted to drugs or addicted to shopping or whatever the affliction is, and you have money, it makes it worse. So I look at money as like a neutral energy amplifying whatever, like the vessel, that's a Kabbalistic term, amplifying whatever the vessel. So I don't think money is evil. And I don't think people with money it means that they're evil, or billionaires are evil. Sure, there's some evil billionaires, but there's also, it's not to say that every billionaire, every person with money is evil. I think we have to look at the vessel and see what that person does with their power. Because ultimately money is a position of power, and people with power can do good and cannot do good. So I
hmm.
look at it in that way, like it's a neutral energy amplifying whatever already exists within. So that's one state. And then there's this other idea from Kabbalah called the bread of shame, which, and I'm going to tie it back to you and your story. The bread of shame is this idea that they tell a story. They say, there's this guy, he got a job, his dad's in the industry, he like interviews for the job, he works hard, kind of like what you shared, like
Mm-hmm.
went through the whole process, works, grinds, he got promoted, he gets promoted, and then he overhears his boss on a call with his dad being like, we gave him the promotion, can the deal go through? So then what happens to the boy? All of a sudden, the boy, he thought he did that all on his own. He thought he achieved that all on his own, but really this is what the bread of shame is.
Mm-hmm.
It's this idea that when people are given things without actually having to earn them on their own, it causes this idea of shame that, oh, I'm not worthy. Like I just got this because of my dad. I just got this because of my
Mm-hmm.
family. But the difference between him and you is you didn't have that. You didn't have that. Yes, you had that relative, but you weren't given the job because he didn't make a call. You didn't get promoted because of him. In fact, it was the opposite. They
Yeah,
were
I never got promoted. I
so
never got promoted.
you did not have the bread of shame, is what I'm saying. So I think, and this gets back to nepotism. So answering that question, do I think nepotism is inherently bad? I'm going to answer it by saying I think that if you don't have to earn something or work for something, I think that causes issues. But
Mm-hmm.
I think having a foot in the door and the opportunity, just like a DEI candidate or just like being
Yeah.
a woman, is an opportunity and you prove it yourself. You prove yourself if you have a foot in the door and opening in the door, not like, oh, silver spoon, get the job, nothing, you're never accountable to anything, nothing bad ever happens to you. No, but I think humans are humans, and everyone is born with a set of opportunities and drawbacks.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone, we all are. And so we'd be remiss not to use the opportunities that we have to flourish. But I think it's the how again. It's like, how do we show up? Are we showing up lazy and entitled and because your dad runs the company, like you're totally invincible and you're acting like an asshole? Or you show up with humility, integrity, you want to learn
Yeah.
from people around you. So again, I think it comes down to your work ethic and also to the vessel, to the person. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's the same thing as money. Like, is this person like are they, sure, they might have been related to somebody in the company and might have had opportunities coming from money. I certainly totally am privileged with really amazing access to education. I went to an incredible private school in New York. I went to a fancy college. I
Mm-hmm.
would be lying if I said that those things didn't help me get to where I am and they were just completely irrelevant. So I acknowledge the opportunity and the privilege that I have. And at the same time, I'm not sleeping on it. And I feel like I take an attitude of gratitude instead of being like, check your privilege. Sure, but I will use my privilege to make myself better and to make the world better. And I think
Mm-hmm.
with that type of attitude, whatever leg up anybody has, go run with it. That was God's gift to you. That was Spirit's gift to you. Now go do something with it. Go do good. So that's
Mm-hmm.
sort of where I land on it.
I like that. I think that's great. Um, I think that, it was interesting. My relative, his father was the one that really kind of pioneered this great, like, uh, I don't know how to describe it. Like he was very innovative in Manhattan with the cable vision and then going into MSG. And so his father, was the one that really innovated everything. And so he worked under his dad. And so he kind of had a similar experience like me. It's different because this is his dad and this is an extended relative of mine. But he said, you have to almost work harder. You have to show everybody that you have what it takes for this role because everybody's eyes are on you. So you have to, he's like, when he told me, he was like, if you're not hearing back on your emails, I want you to pick up the phone call or pick up the phone and call. And if that doesn't work, I want you to go to the desk because you have to just make yourself known more because you have to work harder. And I did do that and I took his advice and it was interesting how the more humility I put into the job, the more I kind of leaned on my soft skills as just a person, the more I got people to be like, oh, she's really not that bad. Like the meeting that we had before she got here, it's like it's a bunch of smoke and mirrors, you know? And so yeah, I think that you have a great approach and attitude about it because I think that that's one thing that's very misconstrued. And today we live in a world where it's like cancel all billionaires, and it's like, yeah, I think it's good to do that when like some of them are not doing the right things, but like there's some good people out there that do have a lot of money that are doing really fantastic things that are helping. And yes, we should distribute the wealth more, like the 100%. But there's just like some people that have this money that are doing incredible things.
Yeah,
And
it's like to me it's again back to the discrimination. It's like, are you just going to hate someone because maybe they were born into that, they didn't have control over that, and all they want to
yeah,
do is people,
yeah.
and I think what we forget in the hierarchy of needs, right? The Maslow's hierarchy of needs is like, so there's like basic food and shelter, and then I don't know, there's stuff here in the middle, and then all the
Uh-huh.
way at the top, there's self-actualization and fulfillment. What we don't realize is when we're creeping up from survival into I'm done like surviving, and I'm actually going to figure out what my dharma is, what my purpose in life is, how I can like serve the world with my God-given gifts and talents. Like that's a good thing for humanity. And the cool thing about money, if money is neutral and if money is neutral and you are on that tip where you're being like, I'm going to look at myself, I'm past these survival needs, I have enough money to be up here and actually ask, who the hell am I and why am I here physically incarnated on this plane? That is such a beautiful opportunity to actually make the world better. And that's
Hmm.
what I think this cancel culture, I don't like it because it's discriminatory. So you're just going to hate all people. Okay, sure. There's bad people everywhere. There's bad people with no money. I see them all the time. They're my clients. There's not nice people with no money either. It's not like poor people, It's good people exist at all levels and bad people exist.
Yeah,
Or I wouldn't say bad people. I would say like the darkness exists in all levels and the light exists at all levels.
yeah.
And like, what is the people who, thank God, have the time to not be like, how am I going to put food on the table? Are blessed people if they actually devote that time instead of effing off and doing drugs and partying and escaping to actually do deeper work, being like,
Hmm.
why am I here?
Hmm.
Show me why I'm here, and are actually infusing that in back. That's a form of giving back. And I think money allows for that. If our mind, again, if the vessel is in the right place, if our mind, body, and spirit are in that place of giving, also Kabbalah always talks about be a giver, be a giver, be a giver, be a giver. So if you're approaching money with that framework and you're in the giving mode, then that it ricochets into more giving across the stratosphere. So I think
Hmm.
we need to stop like being like this type of person, this
Hmm.
political part, this, that,
Yeah,
whatever
it's a broad paint
system.
stroke.
It's just like people are people and there's diversity of personality across every group. It's kind of like
Hmm.
in therapy school, they're like, they one of the biggest like limiting beliefs that we learn about is like, when you're dealing with couples therapy and a woman comes in and I don't date Dominican men because Dominican men are cheaters, or I
Yeah,
don't date this type of man. It's like every type of man cheats and every type of woman cheats. That was her joke, like of every background. It's like
yeah.
you can't, people have good and people have bad. Can we highlight the good and can we spread the good to eliminate the bad? That's how I look at it. And I see money when in the light as, look at Oprah. Look at what the woman's done. It's like there's so much good that can come from that if your heart, soul, and spirit are in the right place. So
Yes, and it's funny how like the discriminatory, I want to like touch on that as we close out the conversation. So when I was at MSG, obviously I needed a hobby because it was it was a tough time in my life on all different levels. And so this is when I started to, well, I got tapped on the shoulder by a friend who I knew in middle school and we really liked astrology. And she was like, I've taken this class, and my friend had cancer at the at one point in time, and she took this class when she was in chemo, and
Mhm.
she's in remission now, but she's like, I enjoyed it. I thought of you. I want to give you the info. And it was right after my nephew died that she kind of tapped me on the shoulder. So I felt it was like very divine. And it was my first certification course to be an astrologer, like to actually professionally study astrology. And so that's when I really started. I started while I was working at MSG. So it was in 2018. Yeah, it was in, no, it was 29, it was 2019. 2019, yeah. 2019, I got my first certification. And I remember also like just having this big astrology book at work and being like asking like all my teammates like when's your birthday and like looking it up and like trying to understand them more through the book because I was like, how can I work with this person better? Because like we don't get along. But like I feel like, I actually got laid off of that job. I left KPMG willingly. I quit that job on my own, and then I got laid off at MSG because of COVID. And so I later went into some part-time work, and I was a server at Cafe Mogador, which is a really beautiful restaurant an institution in New York. And when I was a waitress, I would always hear people talk about astrology, and it was funny because they would be like, "Well, Geminis are this way," and da, da, da. And like that goes back to the discriminatory. Like you can't, do a broad paint stroke with all Geminis or all Scorpios or all Sag. We're all highly different. So, I want to ask you an astrology question. How has astrology helped you learn about your desired career path now?
Oh my gosh. I also want to get your opinion on this because Kenzie's read my chart so many times. But okay, I think the biggest thing that comes to mind is my Scorpio stellium. So several things come to mind. I mean, Sagittarius sun, Aries rising, okay, initiate, whatever, fire. That's like the obvious stuff. Let's not spend time there. But I think like I think I have four placements in Scorpio. I have a North node, so it's my, where I'm headed, what I'm insatiable for. I have Venus. I have Pluto, which is like, oof, that's just a double whammy. And then I have uh,
Jupiter.
Jupiter in the anaretic degree. It's like, oh my God. It's frustrating. That's just like expansion through death and rebirth. I don't know, Kenzie, how you interpret that? Like, actually,
You have a
that
gift, it's a past life gift. I would say that it's a past life gift that's scorpionic. So it's like you have the depth.
the depth.
You can go there with people. Like that's how I interpret it.
Yeah, and I expand through depth. It's funny on this whole awakening, and it goes back to my job and corporate journey. I just can't make really. I used to be like the queen of like so. Used to be I am really social, but I've entered since my Saturn return and like coming out of
Mm.
it, but like still in it. I've been in this cocoon where because I realized I can't make small talk anymore, and I'm in this like I can only have conversations like this where we're talking about real things. And it's hard where I live in Miami. I have a couple friends who are like the real deal, but I have not had the easiest time connecting. Like I find the most connection at my workforce because it's like the most scorpionic work ever of
Yeah.
addiction and healing and root cause inside out. It's almost like they're literally cellularly regenerating bodies. It's straight up death to rebirth, turning your life around, transformation,
Hmm.
accountability. I love like your panel. It's what is it called? Phoenix from the ashes.
Rise
Phoenix
from the
rise from the
ashes.
ashes. That whole idea of like going down and doing the excavating work to
Hmm.
come up. And then I think my Sagittarius is like the torch and like shining
Yeah.
light for people and being like, I went there too. And like not this sort of whitewashed, like, pick me, but like, no, like I'm deep. I get it. Like I don't know. It's like, and I
Yeah.
think that these last couple years have been such an initiation into that grief work, into reinvention, into resilience. And I think
Mm.
that just like breaking generational patterns and self-awareness and cycling through karmic shifts, like I just think that that's where my work lies, and I'm grateful for my fire rising and my fire sun that allows me to illuminate and initiate. And I'm grateful
Mhm.
for my Aquarian moon that I feel like at the core, I give a shit about the collective and
Yeah.
each other, and it doesn't matter like all this stuff with the status that we're talking about from court, it like doesn't matter because at the
Yeah.
end of the day we're all human beings. And it's cool working on like going from working on Wall Street to now my current clients are, a lot of them are completely homeless, like going from
Mm.
one and have been through the worst trauma you can possibly imagine. Like if it's the worst thing you can think of, it's worse. Like
Wow.
it's just going from one end of, and they're in the prison systems. Like it's just going from one system to another system. And yet I see everyone's a human and everybody has insecurities. And I love this addiction space because it also like this is the real shit. Like it's not like what it's not like, oh, I'm a corporate girl. It's like these people have nothing. And so
Yeah.
they have to surrender and they have to look at themselves if they want a second chance. And it's just the most rewarding thing. So that was a lot, but I guess that's where I come, that's how I think my astrology ties into what I do today.
I love
But
that.
I
And
don't know what you think.
well, like I think that also like Saturn and Pisces in the 12th house, like
Oh God. Yeah.
Saturn is the work. And so your work should be spiritual, right? And it should be compassionate because Pisces is highly compassionate. So I agree with you. I have a Scorpio stellium as well. I have a Sun in Scorpio, Mercury in Scorpio, Mars in Scorpio, and Pluto in Scorpio. And I definitely feel like um, that energy and the work that I do as well as an astrologer. I like to say that I'm the astrologer who's there when shit hits the fan. So I really work with people at a crossroads
Yes.
and I keep it real. And I really like the fact that this work, I'm not a therapist. I say that I do astrotherapy, but it's a little bit different. Like there's no red tape with what I do because I don't have a license. I have a human development and family studies minor. I have, a certificate in CBT, so cognitive behavioral therapy, but no, I'm not a therapist, but I'm able to be, I think, a little bit more blunt at times. And you have to be careful with that, obviously. But there is a little bit of like red tape I see with therapists. I think therapy is great. I think that therapy is rapidly changing. And I think it's great that you have both. You have the therapy and then you also have the mysticism. Um, I think that the reason why I like topics like this, like talking about, toxic work environments, also have another course on death. And just really, Scorpio, at the end of the day, we both have these stelliums in Scorpio. It's about exposing the
Mm,
truth to things. And it's really important to have these conversations because there's so many people that are suffering in corporate jobs.
yeah.
You've seen it in your circles quite a bit.
Yeah.
You've served a lot of women in the corporate world, and I think that us speaking about these things and putting it out there, it just shows that it's okay to talk about this stuff. It's okay to talk about, okay, I have a relative that's, also the owner of the company. Like, what do I do? Should I amputate this part of myself? Like, no, like just be yourself. And I think your Aquarian moon like be you, everyone else is taken. I have a Gemini moon, so I love to like I'm gonna gossip, I'm gonna throw the company's names into the panel, I don't care. And like I keep it professional because I have a Capricorn rising, but it's true, it's like I don't care if I put these people on blast. They made my life a living hell like at one point in my life. So this is Rise from the Ashes, but it's also about embodying the phoenix. So we'll end on, we have about a minute left. What does the phoenix mean to you?
Mm. I think the phoenix to me represents resilience and the ability to thrive in chaos and consistently evolve and change and not be afraid of change, not be afraid of the darkness and not being afraid of that transformation. Because we all, like, I think ultimately, I have a hot take that that's what makes successful, like that's like a key ingredient for successful people, being able to iterate and having multiple deaths and rebirths within their own lifetime of themselves and being able to evolve instead of getting stifled with when shit hits the fan. Like how can they lean into it and come out stronger?
Yeah, turning your pain into power. Well, thank you so much for joining. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
And Madeline is a Sagittarius, so we're going into Sagittarius season, so this will drop in the transition of Scorpio and Sag season. Thank you again. Have a good night. I
Thank you,
appreciate
beautiful.
it.
This was awesome. Thank you for having me.